All right. This episode is brought to you by Bespoke Marketing. More on that later.
And we're fortunate enough to have Erik Hitzelberger with Freedom Property Group, and you're watching the Investor Tribe. I'm Hampton Scurlock.
I'm Milton Ali, and we want to welcome you to the Investor Tribe podcast.
All right. Well, welcome, Erik. So welcome to the Investor Tribe podcast.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, I know you've got a very, for those of you who don't know, Erik's got a great background, very smart, very knowledgeable. Love to hear his take on economics, economic indicators, just the economy in general. And he's in for a treat today. So we talk about taking the knowledge from the streets to the spreadsheets. Erik is a master at the spreadsheets for sure. So, Erik, can you tell us a little bit about your background, your company, kind of how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of followed the traditional path. Went to high school, went to college, went out and got a job. I had an engineering degree, so I worked for some big companies. Ended up here in Louisville with a very large company as an engineering manager, and gotten interested in real estate in 2006, and was kind of doing that on the side. Started off as, let it be a side hustle. Got more into it over the next couple of years. 2007, I did a couple houses. 2008, like 9 or 10 houses. Doing that on the side and continued to build that business until, quite frankly, my engineering job got in the way of what I wanted to do. Found a lot of success in real estate, flipping houses, buying long-term rentals. Did a little bit of short-term rental stuff early on. But now, since 2015, been doing this full time.
Okay. And so you've made it out of the rat race, and real estate was the impetus to help get that done.
Yes.
Do you have, any advice for newer investors? I know you said you did a few different things, but what advice do you have to a new investor that wants to try to get out of that rat race?
I think the biggest thing that I wish I'd done earlier, two big things I wish I'd done earlier. Number one is really define your goals, right? I just kind of did it because in 2006, right, people were flipping out. That's what everybody did, right? So I just did it for that and to make a little bit of extra money. And it worked. And, but I didn't really get focused until 2009 when things were kind of going sideways everywhere. And I got a mentor at that time. And that was the thing that really jump-started my career, was having somebody to help me provide some direction. Number one, understanding my goals. So we even knew where we're going in the first place. And then second, have somebody, if it was 1 or 2 or 5 steps ahead of me, help guide me through the challenges that I was going to face.
So I guess one of my questions would be, is I know that you have a career with GE and you also have a career in education. How did that set you up to become a real estate investor?
Yeah, so I think, being an engineer for nearly 20 years at large corporations like GE, you really learn value of systems, you learn how to organize, you learn how to lead people. And all of that was really important in my case, because I decided I didn't just want to do this on my own. I wanted to grow a bigger business. And so having all those things in place, or at least that background, being able to, yes, operate spreadsheets and do all the things, but also understand how a business works and grows, what financial metrics we need to know and understand as business leaders. All of that was extraordinarily beneficial coming into this.
And clearly you didn't immediately quit your job.
No, I stayed around.
So it wasn't wasn't a get rich quick. You didn't just say, "Oh wow, I own a property. Now I can quit my job.
I'm out.
I can jump in. Yeah, I'm out. Then I can jump in." Right. So it was just there was a gradual understanding. When did you say? When did it click? Or what was the inflection point? Or what happened when it says, "You know what? I think I'm going to make a shift and become a full-time investor"?
So 2 different answers to that. One is probably in 2012, I knew that I could do it. I was doing enough deals. We were making enough money. And really, if you think about it, if you do 4 flips a year and you make $25,000 each flip, which wasn't terribly hard at that time, there's $100,000. And It doesn't take that many hours of work to make $100,000. So we could make the money, or I could make the money. I just happened to really like what I was doing at GE at the time, so I stayed on probably too long, honestly, because I was doing, full time there and trying to do full time here, and it was a lot of work and a lot of effort. And to some point, I overestimated the risk of leaving. Right, I had a good job that I liked, and it paid well, and it had insurance and all those other things, benefits. And I kind of overestimated that risk a little bit, and I underestimated the benefits tremendously. That's one, and another mistake. I'll just talk about all my mistakes today, I guess. But
Hey, we'd love to hear them.
No, we have a whole podcast on the mistakes we made.
Okay,
Feel free to share yours. Yeah,
but no, I seriously, underestimated the value of just being able to be at all my kids' events, and if my wife needed to go do something, to be there and take care of the house, or just change when I work and be able to go. And I don't as much anymore. I used to exercise religiously. I would go at 10 o'clock. The gym is not crowded at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? You can go in, you can get out, do whatever you want. Right. It's just not crowded, right? And there's value there, right? Much better than 6 o'clock at night. You can go play golf in the middle of the day if you want and still get your work done. Setting your own schedule. There's just tremendous value. And
there's tremendous value in playing golf in the middle of the day. I mean, I love that.
Having the financial freedom to do those things. Yes.
And then the value of teaching your kids what it looks like to achieve their goals, right? I think one place that I struggled, and I think maybe a lot of parents struggled, was we tell kids they can be anything. We tell kids they can do anything, but we don't model that. And so on a much more serious note, right? This was me modeling that, right? This is me saying, hey, this is my dream, and I'm going to go pursue it. And I want you to know what it looks like to go pursue a dream.
I love that. I really do. I think beyond what we do, as we have a whole tribe that helps people achieve their dreams with investments, with real estate investments. At the end of the day, it comes down to our big why and what we're trying to do for our next generation, for our kids, for the people around us. And I think it has a tremendous impact on the people that are around us. And that's phenomenal. How did you come up with the name Freedom Property Group? I mean, I got some ideas, but it sounds really cool. How did you come up, and what does the company do?
Yeah, no, we spent time at it. So Freedom Property Group initially was founded to help other investors get started, right? For the people that didn't have the knowledge, the time, or the resources to kind of do it, our company handled everything for you. So we were a turnkey investing company. We would buy homes, fix them up, lease them out, and then sell them as performing investments to investors both here in Louisville and then around the country. And we still do that to some degree. But so the name came from just our goal of helping people achieve financial freedom, and helping people achieve ownership of their time.
And
that's awesome.
So that financial freedom, we refer to often on here. So Freedom Property Group, and you still you still have a few of those turnkey rentals available, or can sell those to investors looking for passive income, but that don't want to get their hands dirty or don't have the time or knowledge. So, and they're already renovated. You guys can manage them, and
yes, we have a full service management company as well. So yes, we do it all still in house.
Nice.
And so that is phenomenal, because when we're having people like you on, I mean, it shows that you can go from maybe having a dual career mindset into something that is a shift over into full-time real estate investing. I think a lot of our viewers and watchers are thinking about making that leap and making that transition. And we're glad to have you here today to kind of walk us through what those different transition points would be. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And so what we're going to do right now is go to one of our incredible sponsors. Hey, running a small business is often difficult enough when you're the actor, when you're the marketing, you're the brand strategist, all wrapped up in one. Leave it to our good friends at Bespoke Marketing. They do all of the things for you in allowing you to focus on what's most important, running your business. Go to bespokemarketing.org and go see and talk to our good friends at Bespoke Marketing. Connections, tailor-made. And so, Erik, one of the cool things that, that I like to do when I'm interacting with my clientele as a real estate agent that helps buyers, sellers, and investors, that I often call myself the economist of choice. And it's like, and when I talk to you, it just makes me feel like, okay, well, man, maybe I should have gone back to school. And so I'm like, okay, because you're like one of my economists. And so what I want to kind of speak to you about right now is some of the economic indicators that you are noticing right now. I do know that there is a lot of things that are at present. We are in the middle of the year in 2025. So we want to just really just bring people into where those economic indicators are.
Okay. So a couple of things that I think are important, right? Everyone will say it, but it is ultimately true, right? Every investment has risk, and real estate is no exception. And so I think what's important, just at a really high level is, are my risks higher or lower today? And if I look at things, from 2010 through 2022, interest rates were really low. That helped everything. The economy was strong. And so my risk was low, especially maybe 18 to 22, when there were lots of buyers in the market who could qualify to get homes. If I'm flipping a home, if I'm turning over a rental property, I've got pretty good confidence I'm going to be able to sell that. And I'm going to be able to sell it for the price that I imagined that I underwrote it at. And, things are going to be okay.
So it was almost like this drug of choice being access to cheap capital.
It absolutely was, right?
Yeah.
And it lowered the overall risk in the investment.
It did, yeah.
And now when I look at things, regardless of what metrics you want to look at, things are harder. If mortgage interest rates are higher, that means that fewer buyers qualify. So I'm not as confident I can sell at the end. Short-term rates are higher, which means that maybe my hard money loans are now higher. So I've got more cost involved. Materials, we've got tariffs on again, off again, right? So material prices are uncertain. They've been increasing. We had a period of inflation, for a few years. So they've already increased and now they're uncertain. Labor rates have increased and they're uncertain. So it just makes everything harder. And that raises the risk. So as we're looking at deals, we need to understand that, hey, it's not as easy as it was 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And we need to be really cautious in our underwriting. Right? We don't want to underwrite based on hope. We want to underwrite based on what is this going to look like if it does sit on the market for 3 months, if we've got 90 days, and that kind of stuff.
But what I wanted to bring to you was, are you articulating a reason to abstain from the market? Or how do those...
Or just be more cautious.
Or to be more cautious, or how do those that want to enter the market have that maybe can find a creative way? Because we're always looking for ways to say yes or not yet and be cautious in your underwriting. Yet we know if you wait too long, then the appreciation can often, pass you by, and you're now in a different market entirely. Had you skipped out on the market when we thought that things were too high and too expensive back in 2013, 2014, you would have been the biggest loser ever, right?
No, I tell people every year from 2010 to 2022 that you need to be in, until rates went up, real estate was on sale. I don't really care what the price was. The rate made a bigger difference on the overall value that you're getting and the price that you're paying. Okay. But no, I don't think you should abstain right now. I do think you need to really understand what a deal is to you, man. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. And certainly this is another mistake I made. Right. At one point in time, I just bought something because the price looked good and the numbers looked good on a piece of paper. I didn't really think what is a deal to me.
We call that napkin underwriting.
Sure.
Yes.
So
I've done it before, so that's how I can see it. Yeah.
So for me, right, I've talked about this before, but I have a son who has special needs and he won't be able to support himself financially through his life. So I am trying to build a portfolio that will support him for the next 50 years. So when I look at a deal, right, I need it to be a house that I believe is going to be there in 50 years in an area that's going to be desirable for a rental property and other things, whatever else, and everything that comes with that. So that might be different than what you're looking for, or someone who has a child that they want to pay off their college tuition in 15 years, right? That's a shorter term investment.
Right.
Or somebody who's looking for a 5-year investment, or someone who's just looking for cash, like a short-term rental right now. Those are all different deals. And so the most important thing is to define what a deal looks like to you, because if you can find that, and if I can find that house that I want, whether I pay $210 for it or $220 for it or $230 for it, whether it's worth $210 or not, doesn't really matter, because in 50 years, if that thing's performing for my son, it was a deal.
Awesome.
And the odds are it'd probably be 400, it could be multiple times what you paid for it. So what difference does, and I've learned that from other investors that said, man, I was kicking myself. I should have paid that extra $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 because it met all my other needs. I wish I would have owned that property. I should have spent a little bit extra money. And, sometimes it's tough to do at the time, but in hindsight, you look back and the things you missed or you should have or could have owned. And, but it's tough to make that decision, at the moment to spend that little bit extra money. But if it fits your portfolio, fits your goals, you're saying don't be afraid to spend that little extra bit if your investment horizon's long.
If you can sit down and define what a deal is, what is a property I want to own? Maybe it's a property at the beach that 15 years from now you want to move into, right? And I just need that thing to get me there, right? I want to buy it now. If I can rent it and break even or something close for the next 15 years and I can retire to that house, that's a deal, right?
We want to shout out our socials where you can find us on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. INV Tribe on everything. That's INV Tribe on everything. And so what advice would you that you would provide or give to new investors starting their real estate journey? And I know something we just talked about was the appreciation versus the cash flow, and sometimes they're not mutually exclusive. So that's true.
What are your thoughts and newer investors versus more seasoned investors, or does it completely vary depending on their situation? But how would you weight one or the other?
Everyone has to define the goal first, right? It's kind of like just getting in your car and going out to the end of the road and turning right. Why not turn right? I don't know. Something
right.
But if you know where you're going, well, then somebody can help you. You can at least figure out how to get there, or somebody can help you get there. So, Mike, that is the first thing, and I think it's the most overlooked step. People just kind of join and they want to do. They say they want to flip a house. They say they want to get into wholesaling or buying, whatever it is, but they don't know why. And you have to have that why. You mentioned that earlier, and every investment should have a purpose. They don't have to have the same purpose, but every investment should have a purpose. And so when we can define the purpose, it really adds a ton of clarity to what you're trying to do, right?
And clarity is power.
When we don't have clarity and we get 10, 20, 50 wholesale deals come across our email every day, and we see everything on the MLS, it's hard to sort through that because I don't know what I'm looking for. But if I am crystal clear on the house that I want, and I'm just going to say, if it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath brick ranch in PRP as an example, a local neighborhood here, then I can wipe out 90% of those emails and I just focus on that one. And I decide, hey, yes, this property works for me, or no, it doesn't. So having clarity by having a defined goal is where I would absolutely start.
Makes a lot of sense. So, and that seems like it would give you a good bit of peace of mind, and you can be more efficient if you focus on one area or one type of house or one zip code. Then you know it very well. I say you have an advantage. You're probably comfortable making offers on houses because that's in that neighborhood. They're usually 950 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranches with carports or driveways, and I can spend this and it'll rent for that. And if it needs a full gut, it's this amount. It's only 1 story, so the roofs aren't that much. It's not too much maintenance.
And it's really interesting that you even share that, because when I'm working with investors that have what we call a buy box, that buy box is all of the characteristics of the home in which they are looking for. So often when you do find that, your buy box matches other investors' buy box, which drives up the price, which reduces margin. How do you navigate that? Because if we're all looking for brick 3-1 ranches in a particular zip, and it just, let's just say a cluster of zip codes, then how do you navigate that? Because I'm looking for the same thing and I'm willing to navigate the margins a little bit differently. And so how do you navigate that do you change your thesis, or do you?
Two things. There's always going to be someone else who thinks it's a deal too, right?
Right.
And so number one, be the person who takes action, right? A lot of people won't, right? They'll say, they can define their buy box and say, this is exactly what I want. And you have to know this, right? Yeah. And you bring them exactly what they say. And I need to do this or that, or, I really prefer, gray carpet instead of brown.
I take you that seriously at this point. Yeah.
And so, they'll find an excuse not to take action. So be the person that takes action, and also be the person. And just remember that any investment that I make that supports my goals is a good investment. If I make an investment that doesn't support my goal, it's a bad investment. I don't care what the numbers are anywhere else, but if this investment supports my goals and it moves me forward towards where I want to go, I'm good with that.
I like that. And so I know that you also operate in property management, and that's the goal of a lot of our tribe members, right?
To operate in property management?
No, to be able to hire property management. Yeah, it's property management is it's going to be a tough
That's what happens when you misread. That's what happens when you misread.
But a lot of people do want the goal of being able to hire a property manager or to buy or turnkey
passive
property
income. So if we can rewind that a little bit, the goal is to have passive income and to own property. And I know that there's different, so how do you navigate that, and how do you, gather that passive income?
So, I think passive income is everyone's goal, because when we talk about financial freedom, there's one concept that it's the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, right? But I don't think that's as accurate as it is owning my time. And if I think about owning rental property, right? Owning the house is passive. It doesn't require any bit of my time to own a house. It requires somebody's time to manage it and to make sure the resident in there is being taken care of, and the accounting is done, and all the other things that, all the legal requirements have been met and all that stuff. And so if you acquire some number of properties, 20, 50, 100 properties, and you are self-managing, even if they're all paid off, you don't have financial freedom because you don't own your time. You can't leave for a month or 2 or 6 and not have the whole thing fall apart. Those residents own your time. And so when we look at financial freedom, it's important to say, what I'm really trying to do is to buy my time. And if I can buy my time back from my primary job, if I can buy my time back from my residence, if I can buy my time back from whoever else I owe money to, then I've really achieved financial freedom. And you've achieved the time freedom. And achieved the time freedom, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, really. We talk about it in terms of money, but money is just a tool that allows us to get there.
Yes. And so are there any tenant stories or best ways to pick up tenants? And so let's kind of talk about this. We'll talk about
the good first. You hear people say, I'm going to get real estate. I want to flip houses. You buy a house, you fix up, you sell for a big profit. And then people say, I want to buy an old property. So I want to find a house, put a tenant in it, and collect money forever. Sometimes it's not that easy. It sounds simple, but as far as putting that right tenant in there, what are some criteria you use or suggest other investors use or look at? Because you're entrusting them with a valuable asset of yours if you're putting them in one of your properties.
Oh, absolutely right. And what we care about, obviously, is can they pay the rent, and will they take care of the property? And so we have screening questions, and we try to determine that. The challenge is always, the unknown piece really is life is going to happen to everyone, and life is going to happen to your resident while they live there. That's when you find out how resilient are they going to be, and how are they going to handle it. because, especially right now where things are tougher for everyone, right? Rents are higher. It's a higher percentage of your mortgage, or a higher percentage of your income. Prices have gone up, wages have gone up, but not as much. It's just tougher. And so when hardship happens, how are they going to handle it? It is really going to determine, the outcome for all of you. But good communication is really important. If you establish good communication channels early and maintain them, then when something happens, you're able to talk and work through situations.
How do you evaluate, say, what you would think to be a good partner in the tenant and a not so good partner in the tenant?
We try to look, we try to look at past performance as a predictor. It's not always the case.
Past performance
but that's what we look at, right?
Sounds like our disclaimer.
Right, I know, right.
The opposite of what investment is, but it's the only thing that we really have, right? So we can look at, how have you viewed your house payment in the past, right? Is it the most important thing? When things get tight, did you make your house payment? Were there signs of eviction? Or did you, when we look at your credit report, did you, how consistent have you been about paying your bills, right? Again, if someone has a problem, that's fine. I want to see that they weighted their house. That's really important. And that they've resolved that problem in a reasonable amount of time. Obviously, if we can speak to a previous landlord or two, that helps, right? If you were a slob in their house, you're probably going to be a slob in my house. If you took care of their property and you got your full security deposit back when you moved out, you're probably going to take care of the property that you live in, because that's a character trait more than anything else, right? If you were honest in your report, if you communicated well, all those things are things that we look at when we're screening.
Real estate investing has gotten a lot harder, right? Interest rates are high. There's a lot fewer buyers. Material prices have gone up. Labor rates have gone up. And there's just a lot of uncertainty in the market. And the solution for moving forward is to get some clarity. And so that's why Freedom Property Group is offering a class called Financial Freedom Accelerator to show you how to find deals in every market, including this one, and to be able to move forward confidently with your next investment. You can find out more on our website. You can email me at eric@fpg-ky.com, or you can call or text at 502-921-3989.
It's really interesting. I use property management for mine because I'm a real estate agent and I really don't have the patience for you to tell me you don't have my money. Okay. And so that being said, I know Hampton has a mix of, of a few other things, and I can only just speak for myself. When I do want to vet a tenant, I'm thinking not to call the immediate person where they live with, because I'm looking at what their motivation is, right? Their motivation is, well, yeah, this person is great. Go ahead and take them off my hands. Right. So how far do you go back in history when you're
we definitely try to do the past one. If we can get the one before that too.
Okay.
We do,
Okay.
And most people are honest, not all, but most people are honest. And will give you, a fair report. Or they'll tell you, we're not allowed to discuss that resident or something. Right?
Until the litigation is over. That's what's that red flag.
The restraining order is
you can make your decision how you want to handle it.
Right. So that does make sense.
And to get back real quick to property management, I think you just made a really good point, right? You don't want to be a property manager. And I said before that if it's not supporting your goal, don't do it. I think another mistake that I made early on, and I think other people will make, is they try to self-manage for some period of time. Right. And it really slows you down, right? You think you're saving a little bit of money along the way, but all it's doing is slowing you down, because especially if you have a full-time job, you only have so many hours a week, 10, 20 hours a week at most, that you're spending on real estate. And if you're dealing with tenants and residents for issues for 3 or 4 or 5 of that hours, that's 25%, that's 50 to 25% of the time that you were going to spend investing. And so you saved $80 that month in management fees, but you didn't make the next $25,000 investment. Plus, again, it's just something that's not supporting your goal. If you don't want to be a property manager or own a property management company, later in life, don't start.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes along with, doing your due diligence, putting the right tenants in there. But for those investors that want the passive income, you offer the opportunity to actually to buy a turnkey property with someone in there, a performing asset.
Yeah.
What type of due diligence would you recommend for anyone considering making that type of investment?
I think, so to me, number one, have the goals. Number two, understand the type of resident who's going to live in your house. That is the most important thing, right? You want the resident ideally to live there forever, right? So if I have a house and I want to attract someone who works at a manufacturing company, someone who's a white collar worker, someone who's a nurse, a teacher, whatever, right? I need to buy a house that they want to live in, right? I can't go buy a house for $20,000 and throw some carpets on the floor, throw some rugs on the floor, right? And expect that person to stay there. Right? That house is going to attract a whole different class of person. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means it's not the person that I wanted. So find a house understand your goals. Find the resident. Then find the property management company that aligns with your goals and your vision and the way that you want to work, right? Do they communicate in the way that you want to communicate? Do they have the same values that you have? Can they state the metrics that they have, and is that the ones that you care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
We work with a lot of different people. Some people we don't fit with, and that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of other people out there who can do that. But make sure you're aligned, and then buy the house, right? To me, the resident's the most important thing. The management company is going to take care of your asset, and your money is probably second, and the house is third.
And so, are you asking some of the younger investors to consider the two tenets of making money? You're thinking appreciation and cash flow is in a mix of, or the priorities? What would you encourage a young investor to consider as a priority? They have an investment thesis, and that investment thesis could be their future, right? They would like to, because when I was younger, I can only really think in 1 to 5 year increments. I couldn't think past. I didn't think what I was going to be doing in 10 years. That was just way too much. I didn't have enough bandwidth for that. Now we can kind of look at broader spans of time. However, what are you telling the young people to consider?
So from a due diligence standpoint, I think, number one, the property has to support the goal, right? Number two, you want to make sure that your property management company is aligned with your goals, right? That they communicate the way you want to communicate, that they have the same values that you do, and that they have the same metrics, or that they, can produce metrics that are important to you. Because they are the people who are ultimately going to determine your success, right? I mean, if they can put a resident in there who stays forever, you're going to be successful regardless of whether they're at maximum market rent or not. If you turn over somebody every year, you're going to have a problem. You're just not going to be successful. There's no possible way to make enough money to cover that. From the housing perspective, right, that's the third thing you want to look at. And from that house perspective, obviously you should get an inspection. It's the easiest thing to do to make sure that you know what you're buying. And you should understand when you go into something, hey, how old is the roof and the furnace and the air conditioner? What's, is the kitchen dated, whatever. What are my anticipated expenses, especially probably in the next 5 years? So if my furnace is 25 years old, I need to make sure that I have a reserve fund that covers that. If it's a year or two old, then maybe I don't have to worry about it until such time, or maybe I've got enough time until rents increase and my principal pay down is a little bit, and I can build some equity and I can cover that at some point in the future, or build a reserve and cover that at some point in the future. So we generally try to, number one, inform everybody what they're buying, but number two, take care of those big items so that you have a reasonable expectation that you'll get 3 to 5 years of life at a minimum, if not 10 to 20, before you have to make a significant capital investment.
Yeah.
And at that point, you should have reserves. And I would absolutely encourage people, especially if you don't have a high income job where you can have some disposable income, to build a reserve account and just let it sit there.
Gotcha. And that kind of is a good segue into our next, that we want to talk about was the financial education. So building up that cash cushion or cash reserve to handle those unexpected, repairs, expenses. What are your thoughts on how well or how poorly, the school system, prepares Americans related to financial literacy and, financial independence? What I know you're big on it. So what are your thoughts on
No,
how we're doing?
Financial education is my true passion, right? I do real estate because it gets me to my financial goals, but it's the easiest way to get to some of my financial goals. So I do other things besides real estate as well. But until I built financial education, I really didn't, know anything or know what I was doing. The couple of studies that I always kind of go back to, by the time you're 5 years old, you're either a spender or a saver. Your beliefs, so you've already started your money beliefs and you have started that money mindset, at that age. And if those beliefs aren't challenged before you get to be 18 to 20, they kind of harden into your operating system. And most people don't get, education at home. They hear their parents talking about being stressed about money, or maybe they, how much the mortgage payment is or something, right? I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill, whatever it is. It tends to be negative. At church, they talk about giving more, which is good, or, money is the root of all evil, that type of thing. But there's not really any education around that. And in the schools, financial education simply doesn't exist. So we get to be 18, those beliefs of that 5-year-old child have hardened. And, most people have some either lack of knowledge about money and finances or a negative money mindset. And that rules our decisions until we actively challenge it, right? And so the first time I actively challenged it, I did what everyone else said to do, right? I blindly dumped money in my 401k when I was working in the corporate world. And, in 2008, that did not work well. I lost over half in 6 months, had no idea what to do about it, and thought, well, heck, now I've got to rebuild this, starting over from, a much lower number. What am I going to do? And that's where I became passionate about becoming educated on finance. I love finance. I like everything about real estate except for the houses and the people. And so, I kind of try to blend those together. But so
just
those two things.
Just those two small things. I mean, other than that,
we try to make that.
I feel the same way. That's a different podcast. It's more therapeutic, and So yeah, I'm with you there.
So I heard you wanted to live paycheck to paycheck. Oh, no, you don't? Great. Join us on the Investor Tribe podcast.
But no, as we increase our financial intelligence and we can start to see opportunities, right? Just thinking about investing is more than most people do, right? Most people, number one, don't even balance the checkbook, don't know how much money they spend every month, certainly haven't thought about how much they're going to need in retirement, don't know, and don't have any sort of retirement or savings beyond the 401k. And we see an entire generation, the wealthiest generation, the highest earning income generation this country has ever produced, or the world for that matter, is now retiring with an average of about $125,000 in their bank accounts or in their savings account, right? So they've had pensions, they've had 401ks. We know the system is broken, but we have to actively think about how to do something about it. And when you do, then there's tons of opportunities, because there's not just real estate and owning property. There's private money lending, and there's syndications, and there's just a ton of different ways. There's obviously creative ways to buy real estate with owner financing or lease options or other things. And as you become more educated, you get more deals and you get more opportunities, and those get higher margins. And so now you're able to truly, guarantee is a strong word, you're able to be in a much stronger position when it comes to being confident that I can achieve my financial goals, that I can achieve that time independence, that financial independence, that location independence, if you want it.
And for some of our listeners out there, you mentioned syndications. I know that a lot of times they're popular with seasoned investors or older investors looking for passive income. But what is a syndication? How does it work? What some of the benefits that offers?
A syndication is an opportunity to partner with a number of people and to do something bigger than any of you could do individually. So there's generally, there's a general partner who puts together the proposal or the deal, right? Maybe they've got a multifamily unit someplace, or they've got some land that they want to develop, whatever it is. And then this goes way beyond real estate, right? There's syndications for crypto, and there's syndications for all kinds of different things. But they put together this, and then they bring on people as limited partners. So you don't have any voting rights. You're just contributing capital into this partnership. And in doing so, you're entrusting the general partner to run the partnership and to make all the financial decisions in order to achieve the stated goal. If that is to buy a dilapidated building, apartment complex, and fix up all the units and raise the rents, and then sell it later on, 3 years from now at a much different cap rate or a much higher price, so that the investors all split those proceeds. That's the model.
Okay. That's amazing. And so I think what we can do is sit with you for much longer, just really going over a lot of cool stuff, right? And so what we want to do is, are you on social media, or how do we find you? How do we, if I want to talk with you, how do we talk to you? How do we set up a time to chat or anything like that?
Yeah. Instagram is at Erik Hitzelberger. YouTube, I think, is the same. Facebook is the same.
We'll link all this
right now, but
we'll link all this in our description.
Right.
Okay.
And it's Erik with a K.
Yes, Erik with a K. There is an Erik with a C. So phenomenally, he gets a lot of emails from title companies and stuff like that. Lives in Utah, great guy. but yes.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool. And so we had a phenomenal, podcast today. I mean, learning a lot about real estate investing. And this is what we're here for, to serve our tribe and for you to join our tribe. You could reach us on all our socials on INV Tribe on everything. You can look us up on Facebook, Instagram, X, and
Twitter,
which is Twitter and YouTube. And so
right.
I'm Milton Ali.
I'm Hampton Scurlock.
And we'll catch you on the flip side of the Investor Tribe.
The Investor Tribe podcast is brought to you by the Investor Tribe, all rights reserved, featuring Hampton Scurlock and Milton Ali, executive producer Drew Cookenmaster, produced and distributed by Bespoke Marketing.